Thanks for joining us, everybody. This is my extended interview with our very own Director of Operations, Chris Casseday. The first part of this video here is from our GNGF Live. That happens every other Wednesday. The second part here in this bonus extended interview, where we dive into more detail around Chris's thoughts on what separates the most successful law firms and those that struggle year after year. For those of you who already saw the live stream, the timestamp to the exclusive extended interview is down in the description below. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to follow along with our great conversations on the legal marketing and business side of running a law firm. Likes and comments and subscribes really do help out with the YouTube algorithm, so hit that little thumbs up button. And to watch this video on your platform of choice, you can find everywhere we stream at gngf.tv. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us on GNGF Live, your bi-weekly Ask the Experts about all things law firm marketing and business growth. I'm Josh Means, a marketing consultant here at Get Noticed, Get Found. So it's the beginning of the new year, and for the past 30 days, our awesome account managers here at GNGF have been working with our clients to define their goals and marketing strategy for 2020. A ton of the law firms I talk to have never really had anyone walk them through how to create a measurable marketing strategy, and honestly, that's kind of crazy to me. So that's why today on GNGF Live, I wanted to spend some time taking a peek behind the curtain, show you the process that Chris Casseday's team uses with our clients. The goal here is to help you think about how you can sketch out a measurable marketing strategy for your firm. Chris is the Director of Operations here at GNGF and a veteran law firm marketer. He has been helping law firms with their marketing for over 8 years now. His digital marketing hat, though, doesn't just come off when he leaves the office, as he also has an amazing side hustle where he leverages Instagram and SEO to make money flipping used Nikes. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. Couple of quick housekeeping things here before we dive in. I'm Josh Means, a marketing consultant here at Get Noticed, Get Found. As always, be sure to like and subscribe our page, not just the video. Although you should totally drop a like on the video too, but subscribe to our page to get updated when the next video goes live. We've got moderators in chat also, so please drop a comment or ask questions while we're live. If you're watching this in the future after we're live, we do monitor the content or comments on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So I'll make sure Chris or somebody else responds. And we do all of that because we love you and we love getting to meet you in person. So come see us. Here's where we're going to be next. First up, on January 31st and February 1st, our CEO, Mark Homer, will be speaking and helping with a hands-on workshop at Atlanta's Legal Tech Reboot Your Firm Summit. On February 10th and 11th, we are honored that Mark was invited to be at a startup grind in Silicon Valley as a judge for the U.S. National Competition for the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards. On February 26th to 28th, Mark and I will actually be at the ABA Tech Show in Chicago. And on March 16th through 18th, Mark will be back in Atlanta to help lawyers redesign their practice from the ground up at Lawyerist LabCon. On March 25th through 27th, Mark and I both will be in Denver at the Legal Marketing Association's annual event. On April 1st through 3rd, GNGF is proud to be joining 4 other great legal marketing agencies in Las Vegas to put on the second Best Damn Legal Marketing Conference, or Bedlam, 2020. If you're interested, reach out to me to get a discount code for $200 off. May 7th and 8th, Mark and I will be traveling to New Orleans, where we will be speaking in an advanced digital marketing tactics breakout section at the Small Firm Bootcamp. If you aren't following our page, you may not have noticed, but we started a new video series at the end of last year, and we call it GNGF Tips. Chris's latest video is actually about voice search, which is a pretty good video. I enjoyed that topic. And Mark did one on law firm key metrics recently that will really tie nicely with today's topic. Go ahead, check them out. We drop a new GNGF Tips video every other Friday. Now, let's get to our interview. I want to thank Chris Casseday for hanging out with us. But before we dive in, Chris, you have to share with the audience your side hustle of flipping used Nikes, as I think it shows, one, just how creative you are, and two, that you've pretty much been doing online marketing since you were, 11 years old?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, at the age of 10, I started my own side hustle selling shoes online. So for the better part of 2 decades, a little bit over that, I have been selling Nike and Air Jordan shoes online, which is really cool. I love shoes, but ultimately I like helping fellow shoe collectors sell their inventory and help them out. So through my platform, my website, that's what I've been doing. So it's been a lot of fun. And there is some carryover between that and what I do here every day at GNGF.
Fair to say you've done this for a little while.
Yes, that's fair. Feels like the better part of my life.
Okay, back to today's topic. So I know you and the team have been working on goals, and tell me a little bit more about what that process looks like.
Sure. So first, we need to understand what are the core business goals of the law firm, and then how does that impact the various marketing strategies that we want to achieve. Any marketing strategy should be a core focus to help promote those overall firm business goals.
Can you give me a few examples?
Yeah, I mean, a common example is a firm wants to add a couple attorneys, in the next year or year or two. How are we going to do that? Why do we want to do that as a firm? Do the partners want to spend less time in court? Do they want to practice on only specific types of cases? So adding additional staff is a factor in that. Something else would be like a lawyer, again, wants to like silo down or solidify, like a niche down. Hey, I only want to do these type of cases, whether that's the high value cases or I only want to do trial work or something. How do we get you there? A funny example is, hey, I'm good with the numbers. I'm good with our revenue. I like our client mix. I like everything that's coming in, but I want to make sure I can still take my vacation that I'm used to taking, right? Whether that's a month out of the office during the summer. So we can help come in and say, well, if you want that to happen, we need to make sure your firm can operate and function while you're away. Do you have the system and processes and consistent lead flow that will help make that happen?
Okay, so once you have these business goals, what's next?
Yeah, so it's not enough to just understand, like, hey, here's our goal. Like, it's not going to achieve itself, right? We need to work with our clients to really understand, why is this goal important to you? And then how are we going to measure and monitor that we're on the right path? Like, this is a good view of our goal. This is a better view. This is best. Like, have those stair step tiered approaches to say, hey, we're crushing it. We're ahead of where we thought we were going to be, and like, we beat this goal and then some. Those are the type of conversations that we want to get into and live out. And then at the end of the day, we really need to be realistic, and not have like a pie in the sky goal that's not backed by data.
All right, so you have a realistic goal and you know what defines success. What's next from there?
So we really need to look at the marketing metrics. So how are we tracking these goals? How do we know where we were before, where we are now, to help set the right goals as we're moving forward? A firm that we've been working with for 5 years or something is going to have a lot more of these metrics readily available because we've set the foundation, we control it, we know the history. If it's a firm that's brand new, they're not going to have that. So we need to, A, get that in place, and then B, use that and continue to look at that data and those metrics as we continue through the goal setting and evaluation process. It's more than traffic, website traffic. It's more than conversions. It's more than bounce rate. It's really thinking about what leads are coming in. Are they turning into cases? Are they turning into clients? Are they valuable? What's your ROI on those? So really getting into those conversations, which we find that firms don't really do that. So we like to come in and help them with that. And at the end of the day, it helps move the needle, because that's what we really care about. Like, let's achieve these goals so that we can help further the business goals of the firm.
So when you say move the needle, how does this relate to a marketing strategy?
So as we know, like, marketing strategies can vary from firm to firm. And with working with hundreds of law firms over the better part of a decade, we know that the framework and the strategies that fit with the different stages that firms are often in. For example, you're just getting started, you don't have a digital presence, you are hanging your own shingle, starting your own firm, or you're fresh out of law school or whatever, your goals and strategies are going to be different than a firm that's more established. So in the case that someone's starting their own firm, we would have like a branded approach saying, we need to own your name, we need to own your firm name to ultimately protect your referrals, right? If someone says, hey, call Bob Smith, we need to make sure when they Google that you show up. And that's something that we work through with a bunch of clients. On the other side, a firm that's been more established, that's been investing in marketing for 5 years, 10 years, or even longer, their goals might be different. To say, hey, we get 10 clients a month on average from PPC and SEO. We want to grow that. How do we go from 10 to 16 clients a month? That's where we come in with the strategy and the goals and the approach to ultimately get us there.
Makes sense to me, but so far I've noticed you haven't really said anything about SEO, or we do paid ads, social media, things like that. And I know a lot of law firms, at least in my experience, and agencies seem to really focus on these specific things. So how do those pieces fit in?
So, great question. Those are what we would call marketing tactics, right? And I do see that too. Agencies and other clients, when they come to us, will say, well, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? It's like, let's take a step back and think about where we're at and where we want to go. And then what are the tactics that we need in place to help get us there? So I find a lot of times people are skipping a couple steps, and then they kind of end up in a place where they don't have the clear direction on the end result of where they want to be. Again, the example with like the established firm that consistently gets 10 clients a month, and we want to get to 16. This is where a tactic would come in, right? A different tactic or a modification on a current tactic that's in play, like SEO, like PPC, like paid ads on social, trying different things to help move the needle and see some additional client growth. And again, funneling back to data that's driving our actions and our strategies as we move forward. Like, we're huge fans of that. Use the data in real life that funnels back to help set the strategies as we move forward.
Well, Chris, we're running out of time for our live stream, and I know you have a team to get back to. But if you could you please stick around for a few more minutes? I'd like to dive into something we were chatting about earlier, which is really the biggest difference between your most successful clients and the ones that just seem to struggle year after year.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, happy to stick around and chat about it in a little bit more detail. So let's do it.
Well, thanks for sticking with me, Chris. And once you have a marketing strategy, how does your team make sure everyone is on the same page for what marketing success means?
Great question. So, as we've been talking about earlier, we need to think about and actually execute with getting measurable goals in place. Nothing new there. We just talked about it. The other thing that we didn't really touch on yet is having a feedback loop, a consistent feedback loop between our clients and us. So my team, me and my team that are running things, we need to have consistent and effective communication between the client and us so that we can adjust the strategy on the fly as needed. And then the idea of saying, here's our big picture goals for the year, but we need to break them down into manageable chunks, but also so that we know if we're on or off track sooner rather than later. If you set a big goal and say, hey, this year I want to, increase my cases from this to this, if you don't have those mile markers, those milestones along the way, you can get to Q4 and realize that you're way off track and there's no way you're going to meet it. So we would know earlier, sooner rather than later, if we're on track or off track. And those are the things that we talk about pretty consistently with our clients during our monthly calls or strategy sessions.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So earlier we discussed the biggest difference between law firm growth success versus struggling year after year. Could you elaborate on this?
Sure thing. All right, so no surprise here. The number one thing is actually having a strategy and business goals in place. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of times where firms haven't even been through this exercise or this process, so they're not able to really step out of their day-to-day practice and think about working on the business itself. Like, where do we want to go? Where are we at now? Like, they don't really think about these questions, so we love helping them with that. A close second would be like really having defined communication with our clients, right? So at a minimum, we have like monthly calls with them. We go back and forth via email throughout the month, of course, but the clients that we talk with the most are typically more successful. They're more bought in. They understand where we're at, where we're going. They know they're carrying their portion of the load as far as what we need from them along the way. So it really is a really healthy, cohesive relationship. The idea of just saying, hey, I have these marketing dollars. Let me take them and throw them over the wall to the agency and hopefully they'll, work their magic, just doesn't really work. Yes, we can do a lot of great things without our clients' involvement, but the clients that are with us hand in hand, those are the ones that see the most success year over year, for sure.
So what you're saying is that partnership is key, and it really sounds like the clients who prioritize the relationship with you tend to see the most success.
Yeah, without a doubt. When we work with clients, we are taking a huge load off of their plate. Like, we are the experts when it comes to website design, marketing, content, social media, you name it. That's why they're working with us. But we need to close the loop and all be on the same page along the process. I think that's where clients really understand the value. They understand the importance, and they understand and they can see the progress of we do X, Y, and Z, and it helps get us further along towards our overall business goals. So it really works nicely when we're in really tight communication with our clients.
Well, Chris, we really appreciate you joining today. I know taking you away from your team and your busy day is a lot to ask. So thanks again for being here. And, if there's anything you could leave the audience with when it comes to how to be more successful with what they're currently doing, whether it's working with an agency now, doing this on their own, maybe they have an in-house marketing director, coordinator, what type of tip could we leave them with today?
Yeah, sure thing. Glad to be here anytime. So one thing that a firm can do, a person can do, whether they work with an agency or not, they really need to think through what are their overall firm business goals, right? If you haven't done that type of exercise before, this is a great time to start, right? And it could be, just taking out a piece of paper and saying, what do I want to achieve this year? Or think about it in a big picture. What do I want to achieve in the next 5 years? Maybe you want to retire in 10 years. Maybe you want to add 5 attorneys to your firm in the next 5 years. Think through those things because you who own the firm, you know your firm better than anyone. You're going to know the history. You're going to know where you're at and hopefully where you want to go. The problem is you might not know how to get there. So where that comes in is saying, how do I take my ideas of my goals and transition those into the marketing strategy and then the tactics like we talked about earlier. So that could be, you think about all these goals and then you say, hey, whoever's running my website or doing my marketing, my agency, let's have a meeting and talk about these. That would be a huge first step in that direction. Even if your agency isn't initiating that conversation, that's something that you can bring to them and then they should listen to you and help execute on that for you. If they're not doing that, then maybe you need to look for a different agency because you don't want someone directing and running all your marketing if they don't have your overall business goals in mind. So really think critically about that. But just switching gears and getting out of the day-to-day and thinking about big picture goals, how you're going to achieve them can come with collaboration from smart people around you, for sure.
Thanks for joining us today, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe to our page to be notified when our next episode goes live. If we gave you a few ideas to grow your law firm here during this live stream, imagine what a little bit of one-on-one time with someone on our team could do for your law firm. Hit us up in Messenger here or reach out to us to speak to one of our consultants at gngf.com/speak.